I am almost 3 months into the new year and I haven't actually reviewed a movie yet. Wow, I should get on that and change it. So, looking for my Blu-rays that aren't packed and just seeing what's close to access. Before I moved, a friend of mine borrowed several movies from me and gave them back after I moved, and so I have a pile of them just sort of sitting there waiting for a Blu-ray shelf to be built, which I'm still working on. From that selection, I have chosen to watch a Alfred Hitchcock movie. And then this is where people are asking, it's like, oh, which Alfred Hitchcock movie? Is it, Psycho, North by Northwest, The Birds? And it's like, no, it's nothing really well known from him. It's like, when you think Alfred Hitchcock, this is not a movie you would actually, I don't think it would actually come to mind, technically. Like, even I'm like, this is a movie that I feel is, like, I haven't seen it, and I'm like, this is a movie that's already in my mind as being heavily overlooked. And that is, I think, 1963, if my memory serves me right, Marnie, or Marnie, or Marinine. I have no idea how it's exactly pronounced. But the thing that drew me to watching this movie is Sean Connery's in it, and I never realized that Sean Connery actually worked with Alfred Hitchcock on a film, and this is the film. And if memory serves me right, this is actually during his stint of playing James Bond. He worked on this set with Alfred Hitchcock. So I'm very curious to see what the movie's going to do. If this movie never came in the House of Alfred Hitchcock Blu-ray collection, I would have probably have gone most of my life without knowing this movie kind of exists. And it does. And I don't know anything about the plot. I just got the name, I know Sean Connery's in it, and I know Alfred Hitchcock has directed it. So, know just from that, it's going to be a very interesting movie. Yeah, no, 59 was North by Northwest, 1960 was Psycho, right? Am I getting dates mixed up? So, if this is 63, so this is sort of after when Alfred Hitchcock really shot to fame, So I'm very curious to see what the movie's like. The only other, because I haven't seen a lot of Alfred Hitchcock movies. What I have seen is North by Northwest, Psycho, Rear Window. To Catch a Thief was a more recent one I watched for the first time. Strangers on a Train, love that movie. And that's about it, unless I'm forgetting something else off the top of my head. But those are basically it. So I've been slowly making my way through Alfred Hitchcock's filmography. So kind of excited to sit down for a movie I have no expectations going into, other than Alfred Hitchcock is a great filmmaker and his work is great. Like, you can see the greatness in the suspense or the way he designs a scene or whatever, and it's always a fun time with Alfred Hitchcock, especially if you don't know what you're getting into. So, is this movie going to be less suspenseful, more suspenseful? Is there going to be a twist to it? Like, I have questions. So, I think all we could do at this point is to watch the film. So, time to watch Marnie. How do you solve a problem like Marnie? Yeah, I just watched Marnie. I believe I did get it right on my initial thoughts of how it's pronounced, Marnie. Very uncommon name, I would say. this movie. Interesting. I gotta say, this is definitely without a doubt. Like, don't get me wrong by saying this, but Marnie is without a doubt the worst Alfred Hitchcock film I have seen. I've seen, North by Northwest, Psycho. Like, I've seen all the very good ones. The ones that, a lot of people are like, oh, if you're going to watch Alfred Hitchcock, you got to watch this movie, That's the reason, is the bar is, like, with all the other movies I've seen of Alfred Hitchcock, which were all great, amazing, and all that, this movie definitely fell below the mark, I felt. Granted, it wasn't from a lack of trying. It's just... First of all, getting into the plot, I thought it was slightly interesting, but it kind of lost me a bit. And then there's a whole, I'm going to say middle part of the film with the ship, and like that whole setup plot-wise was like that whole, the plot was weird, okay? Like for a romance thriller movie, this is a pretty unique specimen of a movie, I felt. Definitely of its time, but it's just, like, this is definitely a movie that wouldn't be made like this today, I felt. Like, I don't know if this is an original film or if it was based off a book. Like, I feel like this movie was based off of something that some author written or something. Like, it has that feel with the way Alfred Hitchcock did the overall film. Like, majority of it, I was thinking, I'm like, why did Alfred Hitchcock do this movie? Like, I know he likes blondes, I mean, so some of the earlier scenes and all that make sense, and all that, and how it plays out later on, and I'm like, okay, there's that little thing, but like, what was the main drive to do this movie? And it's funny as, even though the movie kind of lost me a bit, it kind of all came together with, I believe it was the major scene at the end, and it's so weird because I'm like I did not like this movie. I didn't like where it was going. Like in the beginning, I was like, okay, this is, I can get into this. Okay, she thief, liar, hidden identities and all that. She steals the money, and then it's like she comes back to the, I wasn't sure if it was the same place or same owner, different business, because the first scene didn't clarify location wise well enough for me, especially on a first time viewing. I might have missed something, but it felt like to me she was kind of robbing the same place for some reason. So I thought that was interesting that it's like new identity, goes back to the same place to rob again. Actually, it might have been a different place, but then I'm confused to why Sean Connery's character was that thing. But anyway, so she robbing, thieving places, like getting an alias, getting a job, and then steals money generally from a safe. And I'm like, okay, I kind of like where the premise is going. But then the scene with the mother kind of confused me early on in the film, because I'm like, okay, what is this setting up specifically? There was a couple of just, like, a lot of things felt odd, like the whole seeing red and all that, and her sort of having some sort of post-traumatic stress or some sort of disorder, and it's like, it is set up well if you've seen the entire movie. When you see the entire movie, you're like, oh, okay, everything that they set up and everything that they did makes sense to where the plot was going. But the one of the major parts, like, I don't want to spoil the entire movie. I'm not going to spoil the whole movie. I'm just going to say that there was one specific part, well, it's a kind of a major plot point in this film, but like the whole, her kind of getting caught by Sean Connery, and then he sort of forces her to marry him. I believe the first major scene we see where it's just those two characters, I feel like Sean Connery's character is a lot pushy, very no. Like, I don't know if that was just me or whatnot, but it felt wrong. Like, I was watching this movie and I was like, ooh, that was even, Like, I don't even think Sean Connery, the actor, could have pulled off something so kind of pushy, smooth, especially with that kiss and all that. But the way it's shot, it's like wow, that was actually kind of great editing, like technicality on a Alfred Hitchcock level. Like, this movie is still, they know how to film it. They know how to do the suspense and all that. It's just that specific moment, and then it's like the main romance of these characters. I don't want to say, I don't think it's casting that was the problem with this film. I think it was the kind of the story and the plot. I felt like the romance didn't work in the how fast it was going, and just how much it escalated, and the fact that, Sean Connery's character basically finds out she was robbing places and a thief, and instead of turning her in, which would have been the logical thing to do, he goes, I'm going to take advantage and force you to marry. And it's just, it was hard to get around that premise when that part of the movie happened. And it needed to happen in order to get through to the later parts of the film. But it's just, I don't know. I'm very mixed when it came to this film overall. The ending kind of saved it for me in a sense. Specifically, the hunt scene onwards to the very end. There was also a little subtle, not really subtle, but like there was this third almost love triangle thing that was kind of introduced, and it wasn't out of nowhere. It was sort of hinted at throughout, but then they never pay it off. Like, nothing happens of that, nothing comes of that. It just gives a little minor thing, problem to the story, and it's just, and then the gun, I felt, was, though it was necessary for one scene, every scene afterwards that had the gun was kind of in there just to, I felt, just add a little more tension, because without it, it wouldn't have been as intense. Because if you've seen, I guess this movie kind of is playing off of, because at this point in Alfred Hitchcock's career, Psycho happened, North by Northwest. I think The Birds happened prior to this movie, if I remember correctly. And so you got, people are expecting horror, blood, craziness, I don't know, murder, mayhem. And so it's like, I think Alfred Hitchcock was playing off of that, because especially after especially after seeing the hunt scene, you're like, okay, anything's gonna go at this point. People are gonna, start getting murdered and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, at a very sensible, I guess, realistic ending, but I don't think realistic is the right word. But this movie, the last interior scene we get of the movie is extremely, it sort of tied everything together, and it felt very, I think cathartic would be the word for it. Therapeutic, like it sort of just made everything that we went through and what we experienced with the characters kind of just all a little bit more make sense. Because that was the whole drive of the movie, I felt, was the mystery behind the main girl. At some point, it's like, I've spent long enough with this plot that they're trying to do that I ended up liking the plot. Like, I didn't like I liked, her robbing, then getting caught, but then, trying to figure out from there. But the whole marriage, blackmail type thing, and the way Sean Connery's character kind of pushes is a little, my interest in the movie was just a little, back and forth. And then it's like the ending, it sort of came together. It sort of just combined together and was like, okay, looking back, this movie is not terrible. It's not a terrible film. But I don't know if at the time there was any way that you would have been able to approve the movie itself. But I'm kind of curious, is this based off a book? Is there something that Alfred Hitchcock cut out of that script or whatever? Because this has to be adapted from something. There's no way that this movie is an original script by somebody. I don't know what else to say about this film, but this movie made me want to have a therapist, And it's not for myself, it's for every character in this movie. I'm like, go see a therapist, please. You all have problems, okay? Nobody is clean in this movie, and that's what I sort of felt. Now that I got the whole picture, I wouldn't mind rewatching it, but it's just, I want to know what you think of Marnie. Let me know in the comments below. I want you to have a nice day or night or whatever time you watch this. Have a nice whenever.